Hey guys, it's Tracy. Welcome back to my channel. So today I am back to do a 2020 year in review. I have been away for the last 2 months, but I will be honest and say that I haven't read anything in that time frame, and I don't see myself finishing any new books from now until the end of December, which it's Christmas Eve at the moment. So I figured this is probably the best time to do the review for the year. I will say that unlike a lot of other booktubers out there, even though I think I've read a lot of books this year, it is because I'm comparing it to the previous years that I've had where I've only read 5 to 10 books. I definitely have not read as many as what other people would have on this community, but props to them, like absolute great respect that they are able to read, endless amount of books. I will say that I'm very, very happy to announce that I have read 20 books for the year. Like I said, it doesn't seem like much, but to me, it's a big number because I kind of fell out of reading in the last 5 years, which I think I've spoken about in a previous video. And the fact that I was able to read consistently somewhat in this year has been something that I've greatly appreciated and honestly found so much joy in again. I love books and I always will love books. I just felt like I needed to make time for it, and because I was given so much time back this year, I was able to do so. So I am back in that reading game, kind of ignoring the fact that I haven't read anything in the last 2 months. But today in particular, I wanted to go through and speak about my favourite books for the year, really. I think in the 20 books that I've read, I have read some great quality books, very thought-provoking and memorable, as well as, personally for me, this year was a really big eye-opener in that I realised that I needed to proactively pretty much broaden my range of reading genres, as well as diversity in terms of authors that I read from, the kind of books that I'm reading, the characters that are involved. In the previous years, because I had read so little, I was only reading books that followed a trend or a theme, books that were really hyped and was very well known, especially in BookTube, which definitely meant that I wasn't diversifying my read. Whereas this year I was actively trying to, and I will continue to do so because I think I've discovered some amazing authors, as well as given me a lot to think about, a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different lessons that I gained from it as well. So I definitely think that 2020 has been a good reading year for me in that sense. There are 6 books that I want to talk about today. All of them I'm fairly sure I gave 5 out of 5 stars, which is why I say that 2020 has been great in terms of the quality of reading that I've done. So let's get into it. First up, we have Claudia Gray's A Thousand Pieces of You, which is the first book in the Firebird series. I'm sure you would have heard me rave on and on about this already. I gave the first book 5 out of 5 stars and the entire series roughly about 4 to 4.5 out of 5 stars. I will keep this brief. I have done a review, so I'll leave any links in the description box down below. But essentially this is a YA sci-fi centering around parallel universes where the main protagonist has to go and save the person that she loves and then eventually the world that she lives in. It is an amazing read in the sense that Claudia Gray is so creative. She is able to make every single world that she introduces and every single character that is involved really unique. They all have different traits, different features, and they're all very memorable. I loved every single world that the protagonist enters and discovers. There are some favorites. I definitely have some favorites, and the fact that I still remember each world now, and I read this I want to say about 5 months ago, is incredible. If you're into thinking about the different choices that you make, if they make a difference, whether fate and destiny is a thing, it's well worth picking this up. I thought a lot whilst reading it, but also had a lot of fun being on the adventure that the main protagonist was on. So I definitely think this is worth the read. It has been out for a while now. I felt like I wish I had read it when it came out because I could have been involved in the discussions that people probably had whilst reading it, but better late than never, so I am glad that I have picked it up. Next up is I'll Be Gone in the Dark by Michelle McNamara. This was an earlier read for me. I'm fairly sure I read this in February this year. It is a true crime book where it details all of the research that Michelle McNamara did on the Golden State Killer. In fact, she's probably the person that named him that particular nickname, I want to say. If you don't know anything about the Golden State Killer, this is a great place to start. I had no clue who he was. He has been caught, so he is a serial killer, a notorious serial killer in the States, and he got caught recently, I'm fairly sure. I think the one thing about this that I really liked was how enthralling it was. Michelle McNamara just grabs you and doesn't let you go. It's an absolute page turner. There is quite a lot of detail in it as well, and you can see the obsession or witness the obsession that Michelle McNamara has, and then basically that obsession washes over you and you feel the same way that she does. I think another thing that makes this so special is the fact that it was released posthumously. So Michelle McNamara unfortunately passed away in 2016, and this was released in 2018. To actually hold a published book by an author who hasn't actually finished or hasn't actually read her finished publication, to me is something that is really special, and I feel privileged to be able to do so. I definitely think she should be proud of what she's worked on and, you know, what she's delivered. It is a HBO series now, I'm fairly sure, and I do want to read it, but absolutely engrossing. If you're a true crime fan, I would highly recommend this. Moving on, and I wanted to mention Sister Heart by Sally Morgan. This is a fairly short book because it's written in almost like a prose poetic form. It is by an Indigenous author and centers around a young Indigenous girl who at the time is taken away by the government to a boarding school to re-educate her with Western values set in Australia. This is basically a fictional recount of what we would consider the stolen generation now, where a lot of Indigenous children were taken away from their parents to Western families or to boarding schools so that they could be re-educated with Western values and kind of remove their own roots from them, which is a very, very sad time in Australian history. I was really sad reading this. I felt like there's lots to learn still about what's happened to the Indigenous population in Australia, how much harm and trauma has been involved. I think it's well worth the read, well worth picking up. It didn't take me long to go through, but the impact is immense. We then have American Street by Ibi Zoboi. I have only just recently discovered Ibi Zoboi this year, and she's fast become one of my want-to-read authors. She does have other books out there that I am really keen to get my hands on. I think I do have her other one, Punching the Air, which is a new one this year. This centers around Fabiola Toussaint, who migrates from Haiti with her mum to America to live with her mum's sister. Now, her mum gets detained at immigrations, but she's allowed to enter the country, so she goes to live with her auntie and her cousins. Whilst trying to, I guess, navigate through this new world, she's also wanting to save her mum so that they can reunite, and it is a very touching, very sad story, but it says a lot about migrating into a different country and assimilating. I cannot recommend this more than I have already. I definitely think if you are going to read anything, please pick this up. There is so much to learn about Haiti and its culture, but also about the characters and what they experience as a person of color within a community like Detroit. It's really impactful and really powerful. And then lastly, this one is one of my more recent reads, and I would have to say my favorite read for the year. It is The Coconut Children by Vivian Pham. I have been trying to do a review for this for the last month and a half now, and it hasn't happened because I just can't seem to articulate how well or how much I love this book. The Coconut Children is set in Cabramatta in Sydney, and if you don't know where that is, it is almost like a Vietnamese town because a lot of Vietnamese refugees and migrants end up moving there to live. The main character, Sunny, just about to graduate high school and enter, uni. She's trying to figure out all of these things about growing up, puberty, feelings, especially towards boys. So it is a coming of age story. Now, in particular, one of the boys that she grew up with when she was younger is released from juvie and comes back to Cabramatta to live. He re-enters school and she starts to realize that maybe she does have feelings for him. You also get his point of view in terms of how he is trying to settle back into this community that knows all about his life and his story and why he was sent to juvie. The reason why I loved this so much was maybe not so much how relatable it was because of the fact that the characters are in high school and I'm way past that, but more because it brought back those memories for me. It was a very nostalgic read. I loved that Vivian had a blend of English and Vietnamese in there. That made me feel like, this could be a story for any Vietnamese person growing up, especially if you're first gen Australian Vietnamese, which is what I am, and that my parents came over from Vietnam and I'm the first generation to be born in Australia, but I am Vietnamese. I loved that Vivian mentioned very minor details that I think if you were Asian growing up in Australia, you would relate to. Is, for instance, like a lot of the girls would shop at a stationery store called Morning Glory because it's got the cutest things ever, and I did that as well. And just those tiny details in there made me laugh out loud, but also really reminisce about my high school years. It's a great read, but I think because of that personal attachment or that personal relatability, that's why I loved it so much. So yes, this was my favourite read for 2020. I cannot rave about it more. I mean, maybe I'll do a review for it one day if I can get around to it, but I just loved it so much. Like I said, I think this year has been a great reading year for me. I would love to know what your favourite book was for this year. Leave a comment down below. Otherwise, I really hope you guys have an amazing Christmas and a happy new year. 2020 hasn't been ideal for everyone, but I do hope you are able to surround yourself by the people you love in a safe manner to celebrate Christmas, and that 2021 does eventually give us everything that we desire. Great memories. We're able to move on from this year. I hopefully shall be back with a new video sometime in the new year, but yes, have a great day, guys. I shall see you soon. Bye.